Voices serves as the megaphone for individuals who have endured transformational change. By highlighting trials and triumphs, our desire is to create a safe space for pivotal conversations, which in turn will deepen the story and provoke hope for you, our listeners. As you may know, change is never easy, but it is inevitable. You are not alone in what you're facing. Your transformation is possible, purposeful, and now. And here's Aaron Whigham, founder and managing director of New You, with this week's guest.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of New Voices. We have an amazing guest with us today. This woman here has done some amazing things in our community. She is truly a servant leader. She sits on several boards here in Tulsa and is a dancer extraordinaire. She leads several dance teams throughout the community. She is a hard worker. I see her all over the city doing the thankless work that no one usually loves to do. You will find her doing that. She is a graduate of the New You program. We're so happy to have her go through the program and also be an advocate for it. She is a wife. She is an immigrant who migrated here from Mexico. And we're just so glad to have her and her impact here in the city of Tulsa. I bring to you none other than this amazing woman, Jahaziel Hiriart. Tell us the Jahaziel Hiriart story.
Yes. So I was born and raised in Mexico, in a city called Saltillo. It's the capital of the state of Coahuila, which is the state right underneath Texas.
Okay.
And I lived there most of my childhood. And I have an older brother. He's 4 years older than I am. And when he was in high school, he was the first family member to come to the U.S. As an international student. So he really played a huge role in pulling me this direction as well. So I kind of blame him for dragging all of our family eventually. And so, yes, that's how I ended up coming to the U.S. as a student back in 2004. I was a sophomore in high school.
Okay. And when you came, where did you end up landing here in the state?
When I first came, I came to Tulsa because my brother initially went to Texas, Houston, but he fell in love with my sister-in-law who's from Owasso.
Oh.
And so that was the Oklahoma connection for him. And so when I decided to come, we landed here in Tulsa.
Understood. Wonderful. And what was that transition like coming from Mexico into Tulsa and into America? Like what was that transition like?
So I was a teenager. I was very excited about exploring, just a total new adventure, new to me. So there was a lot of nervousness and excitement. But once I got here, there was a lot of fear just because I was completely out of my comfort zone. You know, I didn't know the city. I didn't have any friends. I thought I knew English, but my teachers and everyone, I just felt like they spoke too fast. And so most of the time I had no idea what was going on. So my personality changed a lot. In Mexico, I was always very outgoing, very extroverted. And here in the US, I became very introverted, rarely spoke up. I became more observant and more passive.
All due to the language barrier, or mostly?
I think it was more of the culture shock.
Okay.
And also now in hindsight, I realized that I was experiencing a severe depression due to homesickness.
Yeah.
Because even though it was exciting being here, as a teenager, I couldn't not focus on what I was missing back home. And, you know, all my friends, I went to the same school from pre-K all the way to 9th grade. And so being taken out of that environment at such a young age, it was hard. It was hard to cope.
Yeah. And so you finished high school. And you then go to college?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I decided to go to college in East Texas, in a tiny college town called Nacogdoches, where Stephen F. Austin is located, because my parents had gotten jobs as teachers there.
Nice.
Yeah, as Spanish teachers. And so the idea of being back with my parents really appealed to me, especially because I missed them a lot. So yes, I spent my college years there studying political science, international relations.
Okay. And that led you to what type of career opportunities, and how did you kind of evolve as a professionally?
Yes. So my dream job was always to work at an embassy or for like an international organization. But I quickly realized that it was a highly competitive field. So I was at the point where I was just like, I need a job. I need to start paying bills. And that landed me in the nonprofit field, which is where I have built my career up until now.
Yes. So let's talk about this nonprofit pathway that you have navigated. You sit on committees and boards, and I'll always see you in the community doing work in some way. I said it in my intro, but I mean, you really roll up your sleeves and put your money where your mouth is and do this community work on a whole nother. What first of all, what impassions you in that way to do that? And then let's talk a little bit about what those things are that you're doing, both nonprofit and community work.
Yeah, I have a very natural tendency to give and to serve others because of my upbringing. My mom is like that. Like she'll meet a stranger, she'll see a need, and she'll go out of her way to fill it.
Yeah.
And so growing up with that mentality of if you're able to help, you do it has really influenced me because I'm the same way. And it's one of those things where like, I don't even think about it, you know, like it's very a natural way of carrying myself. And I enjoy it. It's hard for me to say that I get fulfillment out of it, but yeah, sometimes I receive a lot more than I give.
Yeah, no, understood. And so your professional career with nonprofit, and what was that pathway like?
Yeah, so it was a huge surprise to me that you could build a career in the nonprofit field. And even to this day, people that aren't familiar with it, they just think that I'm a volunteer full time and that I don't get paid. I'm like, no, I mean, I would do it for free, but I do have to, make a living at some point. Yes. And so realizing that I could get paid while doing good to me was just a dream come true.
Wow.
Yes. And the first nonprofit that I worked at is called SCR, Sarah Jobs for Progress. And it was a workforce development agency that helped former justice-related people justice-involved people to go back into the workforce after they were released. And it just opened my mind to a lot of different backgrounds and people that were amazing. And I fell in love and I stuck with it.
Nice. What a way to like advocate for like redemption and advocate for like grace for individuals as they're coming back into being grafted into society, and you're creating those lanes for them to be able to do that. I want to pivot because that's what we do at New Voices. We have pivotal conversations about pivotal times in your life, right? And so as you are working in this industry and you're helping individuals to get reacclimated back into society, let's talk a little bit about your pathway being better acclimated to America and all the struggle, first of all, as a Mexican now functioning in America. And then also, like, once you were able to fully understand the opportunity, how you were able to leverage the opportunities to be able to position yourself more effectively.
Yes. So my family being new to this country, there were a lot of things that I had to navigate, a lot of systems that I had to navigate on my own.
Yeah.
And really just you as an immigrant, you get used to this mindset of you just have to figure it out.
Figure it out.
Yes.
Yep.
And when you ask a question and the answer is no, it's like you can't just take the no. Like you be like, okay, not here. Let me, find. So I became very much a problem solver and very much a creative thinker in terms of the way that I navigate the system. So I won't go into a lot of the immigration policies, but depending on the type of permit or visa that you have, if you're lucky enough to have one, there are limits and restrictions on what you're able to do and what you're not able to do, and certain requirements. And so I came to this country as a student, which meant that I had to be in school full time, which is one of the reasons why I'm still working on my doctorate.
Right.
Forced, quote unquote, to be in school and at the same time have to figure out a way to live. So, I've always worked full time. I've always studied full time. But my jobs have always had to align with my studies. And so, things that people don't realize, like having the freedom of choosing where to work. Like I'm just now grappling with the fact that I'm able to do that.
Yes.
And so learning how to do that while also helping my family and also helping the community. Like you said, I think a lot of my drive behind helping people is wishing someone had done it for me.
Wow.
So, like, if I can open a door for anyone that is experiencing similar situations than I am, then I'm more than happy to do it.
What is an it that you wish someone would have done it for you?
Oh, wow. There's so many. But really just resources, like, in terms of like the college system, like
that's a mess for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you can just write a check and just pay it. It's a mess for anybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But even like financial literacy, like the way that credit scores work, and I wasn't eligible for any loans or scholarships, and so what do I do besides having 4 different jobs at the same time? And even just I think talking about it, because a lot of times we believe that we're the only ones going through it.
Yeah.
Because people are not open about these struggles. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing my story, because if I can find anyone that's also on that boat, like we can at least say we're in it together.
That's
like
right.
I've been there, you're going to overcome, you're going to make it through.
Yeah.
So
give us a time that you went through a pivotal situation and you didn't know how you were going to make it through. You didn't know if you were going to make it through. May have cried a few nights and may have, been overwhelmed. But on the other side, you're like, I made it through that. I can make it through this. What's a pivotal moment that you had?
So a huge pivot point for me was when my employer attempted to sponsor me, which meant they were helping me switch from a student visa to a work visa that would allow me to not have to study full time. That's yes, H-1B.
Yeah.
And everything seemed to be going well, and at the end of the process, it was not accepted. I was rejected.
Mexico or by America?
By the U.S. government.
By U.S. government.
Yes,
okay.
and so I received a letter in the mail saying you have 30 days to leave the country, basically. And what I didn't mention was that my brother, at that point, he already had 3 kids, and it's just the 2 of us. So I have 3 wonderful nieces and nephews, and I'm very involved. I love being part of their lives, and so it was a moment where I'm like, well, I can't go back. Like they need me. I'm helping them. I don't want to go back, and I decided to enroll back in school so that I can keep my visa status, essentially.
Okay, I want you to go back real quick to when you opened that letter. All right, and tell us how you felt in that moment when you opened a letter that maybe you've gone through this interview process. I'm gonna imagine it took a few weeks to go through, and then it took another few weeks for you to hear back from them, the outcome, I'm imagining, right? And then finally you go to your mailbox, you open this letter, you see, we regret to inform you. What was that moment like? What was going through your mind? What were you feeling?
It was crushing. I think my very first moment or feeling was of unworthiness. Like I felt rejected. Like I felt like, what could have I done to avoid this situation? So I definitely took it very personally. I felt rejected by a whole country. And a country that I've invested so much in and that I've worked really hard to stay in.
Yeah. I'm giving, I'm volunteering,
yes,
I'm doing nonprofit.
I'm trying to do
I'm
all
going
the
to school,
things. It's not enough.
None of it's
not enough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did you pick yourself up from there? I know you enrolled in school, but psychologically, what helped you turn that corner?
So psychologically, and something that you touched on in me being involved in the community and engaged in the community, even though it was a crushing blow in my journey, I'm always hyper aware of other immigration situations. And so I have close proximity to others that don't have the privilege of having a a student visa, that
Yes.
aren't forced, quote unquote, to continue their studies, that work really hard and have other type of struggles because of their lack of immigration documents. And so having that perspective really changes how you frame your own struggles.
Yeah. So being able to deduce that someone else's situation couldn't be worse or is worse than mine, it gave you the perspective you needed to like persevere through what you had to do. And I'm assuming it gave you, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, I'm assuming it gave you the understanding that if the worst thing I have to do is stay in school, then at least I'm building something.
Exactly.
Is that fair?
Yeah. It's realizing that it's a privilege. Like my obstacle is a privilege to other people.
I love the way you said that. Now say that again. Your obstacle
It's a privilege to other people.
to other people.
Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful. And so how do you double down on that same, because that was in that moment, but now you're kind of living that same thing now to where you are helping people through the obstacle that has privilege in itself, right? And so how are you able in your current efforts to kind of double down on that pivotal moment?
So I think it requires a lot of self-reflection
Mm,
and allowing yourself to take different perspectives and connecting with others.
yeah.
And so I think talking about it is great. Connecting with other people is vital. And just realizing how different circumstances can be for different people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When we had our conversation previous to this, you had shared that how during that period of time, you had 20 years almost where you couldn't go back home because of status. And so talk about that. What does it feel like to not be, to see home like Dorothy? I can see home, but I can't get there. What does that feel like?
So the thing that I would like to highlight that, in my opinion, does not get talked about is the human aspect of it.
Mhm.
So during those 20 years, my grandfather passed away, my great grandmother passed away, my grandmother on my mom's side passed away.
Mhm.
My best friend got married and I wasn't able to be there. And so not being able to attend weddings, not being able to attend funerals, aside from the emotional aspect of it, it psychologically really messes with your mind.
Yeah.
So last year when I was able to go back after 20 years, even though rationally I understood that all these people were not going to physically be there, there was a part of me that expected them
Somebody to be there, right?
Yes,
Yeah, because
yes.
grandma's always there, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's just weird. It does something really weird to your emotions, to your spirit. And it's hard. It's hard to deal with those restrictions when your heart wants to be somewhere else.
Wow, that's powerful. So you go through these 20 years and you get to this point in life where you are now. You have your status here in the country and you're able, like you said, to work the job you want to work, and you don't need all these other documents or whatever. And so talk about the mind shift from doing things from a very restricted standpoint based on policy to now having a lot a lot of broader opportunities based on your current status. Like, what was the mind shift that had to happen there? And then how was New You in any way instrumental in that mind shift?
Yes, I will have to say that is like the pivot in my life.
That's the pivot right
yes,
there. Okay.
And it's something that I'm still going through it, even though, it's been more than a year now. It's a major shift.
Yeah.
And New You could not have come at a better time, because I
No
remember.
way. Stop.
And Aaron did not pay me to say that. But just realizing that, my life as I know it has completely changed. That I felt like the box was wide open, and it was really overwhelming because one, it was never a position that I thought I would find myself in.
Wow.
And so realizing that this is my new reality now, it was full of fear and and I was very overwhelmed because it felt like it was too much. you almost get used to the restrictions and the limitations because this is like what I know and is familiar to me and I know how to navigate. And then all of a sudden when you're told like, oh yeah, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
I get it rationally, like my mind knows it, but my body physically still does not know that. Yeah. And so I was still very much, it's toxic stress and it's trauma.
It is.
And it's something that doesn't happen overnight. But in terms of my mind, my therapist has been very instrumental in helping me with some coping skills, with some affirmations to like remind myself that I'm safe. Yeah. I have people that love me. My husband has been amazing helping me overcome that mindset of, it's almost like a protective, like an armor situation.
Yeah.
Where it's like I even have some other immigrants that caution me to not be outspoken about this because they're like, you never know who you're going to rub the wrong way or, and so it's overcoming those fears. It's really hard. I think the more we do it, the better it becomes.
Yeah. I think that it's challenging. First of all, I want to give you full kudos for enduring. If we can get some claps in there at some point, Jesse. Total kudos for enduring this process, doing it with a smile, doing it with conviction, doing it with a servant's heart, doing it when you were tired of doing it. Like, total kudos to you for doing that. Because a lot of people would have given up, or they would have gone home, or they would have diverted in some way. But you stuck true to who you were and who you are, and double down on that. And so what I want to kind of do is, let's talk about for a minute, how did you hold on to hope? When you're enduring all of this, like you said, family members are passing away, time is going on, you have family there that can't get here, you can't get there. And then you can only go but so far here, right? How did you hold on to hope? And how do you currently hold on to hope?
Yeah, I think one main thing that kept me going is definitely my parents' sacrifice. I mean, my dad, he is a chemical engineer. My mom's an accountant. They had thriving careers in Mexico, and they left it all behind.
Wow.
Because they thought this country would give me and my brother better opportunities. And so that always kept me going, realizing that they wanted something better for me. And also, keeping in touch with my friends in Mexico. And, at the time, it's better now, but my hometown was really affected by the drug war situation. And so it was not safe.
Right.
And so just knowing that they made that happen for us was a huge pull for me.
And so what message of hope would you give to our listeners? Like, as you are thinking about your story and how you have persevered through a lot, and also you've achieved a lot, right? And we'll talk about your dancing in a minute and the ways that you're connected with the community. But what message of hope would you give to the community based on your experiences?
I think my main message would be you are worthy, regardless of what others think of you or the limitations that you have, and whether you're engaged or not. Like, you are worthy, period.
Yeah.
And you are enough, and you're not alone.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. You just mentioned engagement, and it prompted another question. So you're relatively newly married, right? 2020. Congratulations. COVID wedding, I'm assuming. Yes. Okay. And so that means you were single for, a nice single career, we'll say. What was that like, navigating the whole documentation situation, as well as a single woman in a foreign country?
I mean, we could have a whole other episode just on that.
I figured that. I said that's a point there.
To keep it short and sweet, immigration lawyers would ask me like, is there someone, because even though it's still tough,
are they
that
alive?
is,
Like, just check,
that is one way to, overcome or, change your immigration status. And the answer for me was always no.
Okay.
Because I was not willing to engage in a marriage fraudulently, or just to get, just for the sake of immigration.
Yeah.
And then also it was a thing. When it came up at dates, it scared some people away. Like sometimes that was the last, time that I talked to them about it.
Really?
Yes. And also voter registration. That was my number one website that I visited.
Okay.
Just because that gives me insight on where they stand on immigration.
Got you. Okay. So you're pre-screened.
Pre-screening.
I got you. All right.
Yeah.
And so now you got to give us a funny story about one of these, like, one date and then disappear. Like I need, if you could we need something to just like hold on to.
Oh, there were many. But there was, the one that comes to mind.
Don't say any names.
No.
We don't have insurance.
No identifiers. No, it was funny because in hindsight, I realized that they were really trying to pretend that they weren't the person that they were. And like they would like have woke speak and like different terms.
But they really weren't about that life.
Yes, but like totally ghosted me. And like, and then the funny thing though is that I bumped into them with my now current husband.
Okay.
And totally pretended they did not know me at all. So.
Wow.
There you go.
How about that?
Yeah.
Man. We'll move on from there, but I know that there's a whole lot to that. We'll talk about that at Antoinette's. Okay, very good. So we know that fear is a part of life, and you learned in New You that we channel fear, right? And it's an energy that you have to just channel. You have to put it into something. What would you say after all you've been through and overcome? What would you say is the next fear that you're ready and willing to tackle? Or maybe not fear, but obstacle. Yeah. Like, I know it's there, but I'm coming for it.
Yeah, I think because of all the different things that I had to navigate, there was a lot of change. And so I'm at a point in my life where I crave stability and I crave just like structure and peace. Yep. But at the same time, I'm realizing that it's the fear of change, and also it can limit growth.
Yes.
And so sometimes I just like want to stay in my own little comfort zone. Like I know the familiar setting, but it's overcoming the fear of, growth.
Yeah. I mean, if we know that fear, we know that change is a part of life. It's inevitable, right? And so if change is inevitable, that means that in order to grow, you have to change. Like you don't wear the same shoe size you were at 5. Hopefully not, right? And so because of that, a sign of me growing is change. And if you're afraid of changing, then you're inhibiting growth. And that inhibition can be paralyzing, and it can be it can literally take life. It can take you from living to existing.
Yes. Yeah. And if I can say a little bit more about fear.
Sure.
I'm learning my approach to fear.
Okay.
And looking at it as a sign that something big is happening, something major is happening, and not letting it paralyze me. So when I was finally able to go back to Mexico, I almost didn't want to because I was afraid of like, what if it doesn't feel like home?
Yes.
What if, I don't know. There were just so many unknowns.
Yeah.
But after going through it, it's just a sign that it's something big. And after you tackle it, you look back and you're like, that wasn't as scary as I thought it would be, you know? So overcoming that paralyzation is important.
It's huge. And actually being able to take the thing that's paralyzing and turn it into anticipation. It's like, how do you anticipate this versus be paralyzed by it? I think that's powerful. So how can individuals reach you? What is the best way for people to follow you on social? Sure.
Yes. So I am reachable on all the platforms, mostly because of my dance involvement. So Latin Dance 918, Ritmo 918. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok. Dance has been a great therapy tool for me and a great escape from all the stress and struggles. So I highly recommend it.
Let's talk about that a little bit. What types of dance do you do, and why is it so important to you?
Yes, so Latin dancing, mostly salsa and bachata.
Okay.
Yes, and it's important to me because coming to the U.S., people assumed that bachata and salsa are Mexican, and they are not.
They are not. Yeah, right.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
And it sparked my curiosity of like, well, where is it from? And, why don't I know the origins and roots of that?
Right.
And so I'll just say that if it wasn't for Black culture, if it wasn't for African rhythms and percussion, we would not have what is now salsa and bachata. And so it's very deep for me. It's very meaningful when you learn about the meanings of different movements and just what it can do for people. So movement is very healing.
Good. Anything you got coming up that they...
Yes. So we are very fortunate to have found actual dance professionals from the Dominican Republic and from Colombia that live only 2 hours away from Tulsa.
All right.
And so they are willing to drive every week to teach us. And in March, we will be having a salsa series, a 4-week salsa series.
Okay.
So you can register for it. It's going to be amazing.
Dates?
I highly, highly recommend it. So March 5th, it's the first Sunday. It's every Sunday in March. And it'll be great.
Location?
Fly
Loft. Oh, right here. All right. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Jahaziel, this has been a wonderful time together. I want to thank you all for listening and watching. Please follow us on our social media at Facebook, LinkedIn, and IG. We are New You Tulsa. And also, you can go to our website, newyoutulsa.com. We'll be happy to have you. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you for listening to this episode of New Voices. Visit our website at www.newutulsa.com. That is NEWU Tulsa.com. Follow us on social media at New You Tulsa on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And a special thank you to our producer, Jesse Ulrich. If you're looking for self-improvement, join our free cohorts for personal and professional development opportunities. New You is a way for diverse talent to imagine, discover, and actualize a 2.0 version of yourself. Bring your future into focus.